What I'm about to share with you in this video, well, not really sharing, I've said it before. What I'm saying here is that some folks, if the opportunity would come, they would take your life. And I mean it literally, what I said. They will take your life. They will kill you. Look, I'm speaking as someone that's experienced in fighting off psychic attacks, psychic violence, and I'm someone that overcame violence. I'm not patting myself on the back here. I'm just making plain, I'm not just talking just to talk. Or else I wouldn't have this YouTube channel. If I was just talking just to talk, people would have seen through me a long time ago. But people come to this channel and they listen because they see there's anointing here. Now, as someone that's anointed, who's experienced in overruling violence and danger, let me tell you, some folks, if the opportunity would come, they would take your life. They would either do it directly themselves with their own hands, or they would use someone else to do the dirty job for them so they are at ease. I'm telling you, Christ told his followers that there comes a time that people will think they're doing God a service by killing you. I mean, Christ said it. And he repeated similar messages through his disciples, who wrote the biggest part of the New Testament. So if there would be people thinking they're honoring the Heavenly Father, while they're not even, some of them are not even saved, but there will be people thinking they're honoring God or they're honoring Christ by killing you. That can be literally killing, taking your physical life, or by making life hard on you. So if Christ told us that, then why are some people surprised when I tell them that there are people that might take their life if they had the opportunity? A lot of folks go to church every Sunday or on every Sabbath, and they never hear messages like this. Hey, listen, we live on earth. And on earth now, the majority of human population is in the negative. So there's evil on the earth. You live in the world, this fallen world. And you have fallen stuff happen in this world. That shouldn't happen, but they do happen every day. And you have many enablers in the world that enable the negative. So as a believer, you ought to be aware of this and how to overrule it and bypass it and circumvent this in your strength as a believer. And your strength comes from the Holy Spirit because you operate in supernatural. That's why I tell every believer to agree with Christ. Now look, if Christ warned you that there will be people thinking doing God a service by killing you, then why is it weird to some people when I tell them that there may be people, that there are people out there, if they had the opportunity, they would kill them. They would kill you. Why are people upset when I say that? Listen, a lot of folks want to remain in a bubble of denial. And this bubble of denial works. You have your job during the week that tires you, then you have the weekend when you're having a great time, getting intoxicated. And if you are a churchgoer, there's also church when you refresh yourself, and then it starts all over again. And sometimes in the year you have holidays, people post photos of it on Instagram, or if you don't have social media, you share it with friends and relatives, and everyone has this ease and comfort. That's what a lot of folks are looking for. And to maintain this bubble of denial, they will deny and resist any real life knowledge that's life saving. And worldly people in general do this. That's why when some grievous tragedy happens, a lot of people tend to be shocked because they never saw it coming. And indeed, many people indeed never saw it coming. But that is because they're so distracted by operating in this bubble of denial, which is their collective comfort zone, or what we call society. Society is like a comfort zone. It's an agreement people made collectively not look beyond certain things. That's what society is. But here's the thing. Often there were people that saw something coming and they opened their mouths, but they were shut down. They were shunned or they were even punished physically. That's how it goes in this world. When you see a real danger and you alert people, often it doesn't matter how polite, how respectful, and how kind and loving you bring the message. Often people just don't want to acknowledge that such things can happen, so they will turn on you. So a lot of folks learn to shut their mouths and allow bad stuff to happen because people don't want to listen. Now look, it's your responsibility to look after the community you're in. That doesn't mean that you are responsible for everything that happens, no, of course not, but you are responsible towards your community concerning safety of your fellow human beings. So when something doesn't add up, you can at least highlight or point out that something may not be right. You don't have to flat out point out what's going on, especially if you're in a hostile environment when people don't want to hear the truth, but at least point out that something doesn't add up, or just leave something. For example, if you're attending a church, but they're teaching black magic in the name of Christ, then just leave the church. If you leave the church, people may ask why did you leave the church. Then people come to ask questions. Then they may realize, hold on a minute, maybe something's not wrong with it. Something's not right with that church. Look, I record this message spontaneously. I speak quite fast. That's why sometimes I stop, because sometimes I speak too fast and I tend to mess up the message. But you're used of that of me. Over the years, I've learned to speak slower, but I still speak fast. But okay, look. When you evaluate a situation, don't just look at the big stuff. Sometimes it's the small stuff that point out that something ain't right. Look, police officers that are experienced know how the world really operates. I'm not saying they know it in full, like how the organization structure and all of that are, but in general, they know how fallen man operates. That's why, for example, when a homicide happens, the police will suspect the spouse first or the sex partner of the individual, or someone that was closely involved with the individual. Why do they suspect some stranger, some robber who just wanted to steal something and didn't work out? That would be more convenient. But this thing, people, because they hold on to denial, they don't want to acknowledge that there may be evil around them, that they may have to deal with something. They tend to project it all externally. But those who have been trained in law enforcement and are experienced, they know the real facts. That people are, in general, creatures of denial by choice, and therefore they don't see things coming. That's why people that are trained in law enforcement or people who are into, well, things like detective series, who pick up good information, because not everything in those detective series are valuable, but from time to time they will reveal real knowledge. People that pick up the real knowledge, they'll begin to see through stuff. And they'll see things coming. So they'll exit a situation, they'll exit a relationship, they'll exit a job when they see things are getting out of hand or things are going wrong. But a lot of folks just don't see things coming. They really don't. I always tell you folks to look at the bigger picture. I don't do that just to sound trendy, because looking at the bigger picture is not a popular thing in the world. It never was and it never will be, because worldly people in general operate in denial. They want to be relieved, left alone in their bubble of denial, and at the same time expect everything to work out well. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. But that's how society is. That is what society stands for. Collective denial. Now look, let's give an example now. You have a small, not okay, I'm not going to give a small town example. Okay, let's say now in a big city, a girl gets kidnapped. It's all over the news. The parents are horrified. few weeks later, she's found dead. Now the community is traumatized. And in this case, it wasn't a shadow government operation, it was just an incident, because incidents happen also. So now people are investigating the case. You have this young police officer who comes to interrogate some friends of the victim. But then he notices that one of the friends looked quite annoyed when they were talking about her. And he realized, hold on a minute, that doesn't add up. Someone cannot be your friend. And she has been killed in a cold-blooded manner. And now people talk about her and you feel angry. You should feel sadness. Or you should tend to want to avoid the subject, but not that you feel angry when her name is mentioned. So the young police officer mentioned this to his superiors, and superiors told them, we'll deal with it. Later they found out that this girl, who used to be close friends with the victim, was also involved with a drug dealer. A drug dealer who just has been kicked off the streets for not honoring the codes of the street. So there was this failed drug dealer she was sleeping with, and this failed drug dealer was so emotionally dependent on her, he was willing to do anything to keep her happy. So this friend of the victim began to complain often about her friend, how she hated her and lying about her to that failed drug dealer. So the failed drug dealer one day promised her that he's going to take care of it. So that drug dealer, together with some guys from the street, some teenagers, kidnapped the victim, tortured the victim, and eventually killed her. And look at this. That so-called friend of the victim knew all along what happens to her. So when she saw her parents and her peers mourning about how the victim was killed, she pretended to feel sorry, to be hurt and all of that, and people just fell for it. But this young police officer saw through her BS. He didn't know the full story, but he knew something wasn't right here. Now what happened? This chick who really hired a hitman emotionally. She didn't hire him with money, she hired him emotionally. She emotionally hired a hitman to kill one of her friends. Why? She was upset with her own life, but she didn't want to take responsibility for her part in her life. She only looked at what her parents did to her, or how parents neglected her, or how people didn't do things for her. She never evaluated how she dealt with stuff, or whether it was wise or not. And then you had this friend of hers who had charisma. She was a positive young lady, and she got a lot of attention from the guys, but she had a decent attitude. She didn't just give in to the guys that easily. And because of that, the guys valued her. And she built healthy, strong relationships with other people, including people of the opposite sex, without any discomfort in it. And it's this feminine energy that the victim operated in that enraged that jealous friend. She, as a woman, could also operate in femininity, but she refused to. She was upset. Instead, she operated as a parasite feeding off of people's attention. That's how she ended up with that failed drug dealer. Now, instead of looking at her own decisions and her own attitude and her own expectations to see where she needs to look for help, because there was help available, she preferred projecting her pain and her anger on that friend of hers who did nothing wrong to her. And she really began to believe that her friend was responsible for her misery, even though, logically speaking, that was impossible. But she didn't care, she was only into her own emotions. So when she kept murmuring about that friend of hers, she was really inspiring that boyfriend of hers to do something about it. She didn't want to do anything about her own negative thinking, but she expected relief and she expected someone else to do it for her. She was relief seeking, but she didn't even want to take responsibility for seeking the relief she was looking for. So she took her friend's life. And with that, she harms the whole community. Look, I don't make these videos to glorify darkness, absolutely not. However, the unfruitful works of darkness ought to be exposed. I'm not into church dramas. I'm not into conspiracy theories. I'm not into those distractions. I'm pointing out real life facts to you. Some people, if the opportunity would come, they would take your life. Either directly or they'll blackmail others to do the dirty job for them. And unfortunately, there are a lot of desperate people that want approval, that are so desperate they would do anything to get approval of other people. And yes, there are a lot of desperate, emotionally addicted men out there that would readily kill for any woman just to get the approval of her. And there are Jezebel females taking advantage of this. That's why there are husbands that are killed by another guy, but later they found out it's a wife that was behind it. And she didn't even offer money, just offered her looks. And it worked. That's the type of world we live in. Some folks would readily take your life if they had the chance. Now, thanks to society itself, even though society is like an agreement of denial, but society also has um, restrictive measures to reduce violence. They do. And it's because of this, many homicides or many violent attacks don't happen. But instead, there's still violent contagion. That's why you have a lot of psych attacks. And let me tell you one more thing. There are people dying in car accidents not because they drank too much, but because they energetically malfunctioned. Why? They were under so much stress because their bodies uh, received a lot of energetic bumps of all the psychic violence against them that suddenly the body just shut down on a very important moment and, well, an accident happened. Now, in this case, the people behind the individual's back kept murmuring and venting negatively about the individual, and this collective witchcraft caused the individual to die. There are people who got suicidal thoughts and they just snapped, took their own life, or they just lost it. And when people find out why the individual took their own life, they can't find a reason. But then you'll find out that there was a lot of negative meditation about the individual for months, sometimes even years before it happened. The people say, well, he made a decision, she made a decision. Well, if someone has been bombarded with psychic bombs so often, they can't think straight anymore. So they can't operate well anymore. They can't even manage their own will anymore if it comes so far. In such a state, someone either needs to be admitted in some hospital or they need to get help as soon as possible. But even then, often such people who are the target of serial psychic attacks don't get the help they need and they end up exploding. And when they explode, others get harmed or they get harmed and the community is in danger. Because now something bad happens and people want answers, but there are no answers. In this case, people's lives have been taken from them by others having the ease to have negative wills against them. That's why I teach you to not tolerate any will against you. People can expect things from you. People can refuse you things. People can refuse to give in to your expectations. People can say no to you. They can, but never tolerate negative wills against you. People don't have the right to will whatever they will and to feel whatever they feel concerning you. They don't. The world teaches you this. They call it free will. It doesn't exist. When you give people the right to have a negative will towards you, you give them permission to enable danger towards you. You give them the opportunity to take your life if they have the chance. And if your life can't be taken, it will affect the lives of those around you, your children, or those that are in your care. Some families experience losses due to sickness or to cancer and all of that. And the result of that loss was due to collective witchcraft. But here's the thing. People have been taught by church and by philosophers people have the right to will whatever they will. They call it free will. So if people decide to have a negative will against you, you can't make them stop, so you just have to take it. So what happens now? A lot of people keep willing whatever they will in the negative, keep emitting this negative energy, and their targets or others are affected by it, and it can end up in physical sickness and people dying before their time. But people don't see the connection. Well, I just show you the connection. Some folks would take your life if they have the opportunity. And here's the thing. Are you giving others the opportunity to take your life? Well, that's why you agree with Christ. Folks can't will whatever they will. Some of you, you keep having setback, you keep having what they call in the world bad luck after bad luck, setback after setback, and you know why? You give others the space to take your life. When you agree with Christ, you operate supernaturally. Man, wherever they are, there are repercussions. And let me tell you another thing. There are pagans out there. They don't have Christ. They're not born again. They're pagans. But they're far more practical than many believers. There are warlocks out there. They're not part of the shadow government. They have no intention in harming people. But those warlocks, in their home, they have their little room where they have their altar, and they put the pictures of everyone that don't like them or has anything against them, and they put paranormal ceremonies on those people. That contention will remain around them as long as they agree against them. Well, this is paranormal activity. This is witchcraft, so I don't support witchcraft here. However, that warlock is far more practical. That warlock has no intention in harming others. He's just doing his thing. But he has people that decide that they can will against him. And he realizes very well, with the little knowledge he has of the spiritual realm, that negative wills of other people emit negative energy, and sooner or later, the target or anyone around will feel the harmful consequences. He, by his own human strength, can't make people change how they think on the inside, but he does take action against those people, even those paranormally, to hinder them from willing whatever they will. There are warlocks like that. And let me tell you, I don't support witchcraft, absolutely not. So I'm not going to promote a warlock. But I'm telling you, you will be far safer with such a guy who's a warlock than that you are with a churchgoer who just screams and shouts amen, but never looks at the bigger picture. Look, if there are no believers around that walk by faith, and you had to choose between a warlock that's practical in resisting danger and a common individual who just goes through life, never looks beyond, just want to be left alone, you will be safer with that warlock. Now, am I telling you to prefer the warlock? No, because he's into witchcraft. At least he's practical. And that is what Christ meant when Christ said that the children of this world are far wiser in the generation than the children of light. He's not, as I mentioned before, Christ is not debasing his followers who are believers. It's pointing out that those in the world, the pagans, Christ doesn't mean all unsaved people, but the pagans who are practical are far more effective than many people that claim to follow Christ, because at least those pagans, when it's needed, they look beyond and they take actions that are practical. I always tell you guys to be practical. The same I'm doing in this video. That's why I took the time to record this video for you. It has been over 24 minutes. I didn't intend to make this long, but please listen to my videos and learn from them. I do not make them to get attention. I make them so people will learn from them, so that their lives will be preserved. Some folks, if they had the opportunity, they would take your life. Will you let them? Now look, of course you walk by faith. And because you walk by faith, you agree with Christ and operate in his strength. That warlock in that parable I just gave unto you, he doesn't have Christ. And he knows if he does not light his candles and do his paranormal thing, he'll be in danger. His life is over anytime. He knows the risk is in. and he takes actions that are appropriate to preserve his safety. Well, the real safety would be if he becomes born again and follows Christ. But he doesn't know that. He thinks that what he's doing is the right thing, but at least he's consistent in it and persistent and practical in it. I'm telling you, believers ought to be far more practical than pagans. That's why pagans in this role, they win. Even when the majority of the people are against them, even if they are around a lot of folks who don't want anything to do with them, often that pagan will make those other people have to put up with him or her, and they will treat it in, and the people that don't want him will treat them with kindness and respect. Why? Because that pagan uses the paranormal powers he has to preserve his safety. Though he fights the will of others that are wrong. But then you have believers that attend churches that tell them people have a right to will whatever they will. It's their free will. So you have to find a way to deal with it. Some of those pagan churches even go so far to say that even the Most High has to find a way to deal with the wills of people. Because they won't interfere with the so-called free will. You see how far this BS teaching has gone? You see what it does to people? So you mean to tell me that as a believer who walks by faith, you have to put up with danger being emitted towards you? Because people have a right to will after will is their privacy, their life, and all that BS. And now you have a pagan who has no bad intentions, but he, out of defense, he uses the paranormal to keep himself and his family and those in his care in safety. So you mean to tell me that Christ will prefer you, the believer, putting up with danger all the time? And he will fight the pagan who wants to preserve the people in his care? Now look, Christ does not support paganism, absolutely not. But here's the thing, at least that pagan is realistic. So you mean to tell me Christ wants you to operate in a far inferior quality than the pagan? No! No, no, no! Look, leave pagan Christianity, please. And above all, agree with Christ.